afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Bartleby the Scrivener, a story of Wall Street by Herman Melville. As everyone knows, living conditions in the 19th century were incredibly cruel. Even in New York City, people did not have lawnmower robots, vegan liverwurst, or light-up unicorn slippers. And they had to write things down with their own hands. No typewriters, no photocopies, no computers, zero. So there were people employed to copy official documents, for example, for an advocate, for example, for our first-person narrator here, the advocate. An elderly, successful, but not over-ambitious gentleman who is fairly tolerant when it comes to the eccentricities of his staff. There's first the scrivener or writer Turkey, an Englishman who in the morning is very reliable, but regularly ticks out after lunch break like a steam engine on fire. His colleague Nippers, a little younger and constantly at war with the height of his writing desk, is on duty to freak out from morning to lunch. Thirdly, there is the office boy Ginger Nut, who doesn't freak out and is named after the cookie, because he's got to procure them all the time for the others. It's a kind of staple food of the office. The title hero Bartleby is a new addition to the staff, and besides being a rather pale young man, there's nothing remarkable about him yet. The story was first published in 1853, and it is set at the time in New York City, mainly in the advocate's offices on Wall Street, which is more or less like a dungeon. When you look out of the windows, you only see brick walls. And off we go. Yes, I did it! I'm master of chancery. Now I need more scriveners. Let's do an advert. Ooh, that was quick. Hello, Mr. Bartleby. Hi, you've got a job. Welcome to the company. You can sit in my office right here. Another desk is put there. And we'll put in a screen too for a little privacy. And behind that screen, Bartleby now goes off to write his copies. So Bartleby copies his documents very diligently, and a couple of days later, Bartleby, come here, we've got to compare this sheet with the original. And he looks around and says, I would prefer not to. Prefer not to? What are you? Come here and compare this sheet. I would prefer not to. He goes back. And the advocate is so flabbergasted, and Bartleby is so disarming that he does the job together with Nippers. A couple of days later, the whole company is assembled because they need to compare 4 copies with the original, and the advocate goes, Bartleby, come here. What is wanted? We need to compare these 4 copies. I would prefer not to. But why? I would prefer not to. But it's part of the job, isn't it? I would prefer not to. Turkey, am I right? He goes, of course, sir. Nippers, I would chuck him out. It's morning, so Nippers is freaking out here. And the office boy goes, he's a little loony. But Bartleby is so friendly and passive and harmless in his statement that the advocate swallows his anger and lets it go. Bartleby goes back and they do the job on their own, which is a little frustrating because one of them always has to go back to the original now. This happens a 3rd time, and then the advocate says, Bartleby, Ginger Nut is away. Could you quickly go to the post office? I would prefer not to. You will not? I prefer not. And he goes back, Bartleby, Bartleby, Bartleby. Go next door and fetch Nippers. I prefer not to. Very good. These incidents make the advocate watch Bartleby closely, and he finds him in the office on a Sunday morning. He must be living here, and he must be so lonely. And on the next day, Bartleby, will you tell me where you were born? I would prefer not to. Will you tell me anything about yourself? I would prefer not to. Why on earth will you not speak to me? I'm all friendly, and he really is, which may be why Bartleby varies his answer slightly and says, at present, I prefer to give no answer. Be reasonable! I prefer not to. And Nippers has overheard the conversation and goes, I'll give you prefer not to. And the advocate goes, Mr. Nippers, I would prefer that you would withdraw. Ha! The preferring is contagious. On the next day, Bartleby just stands at the window, and the advocate goes, no more writing, Bartleby? No more. And why? Don't you see for yourself? And the advocate looks around and goes, oh, probably the bad light, his eyes must be afflicted, he must be sick. Okay, Bartleby, you first get well and then we'll see. But after some days, Bartleby goes, I have given up writing completely, sir. All the time he stays in the office, his colleagues are furious. Bartleby, you can't stay here. Here's the rest of your wages plus $20. Tomorrow morning you're gone. Goodbye and good luck. But on the next morning, Bartleby is still there. Bartleby, I'm displeased. Will you quit me or not? I would prefer not to quit you. Then will you work? And to this, Bartleby gives no answer and simply goes to his corner. Well, as a Christian, I've got a duty towards him, don't I? But his business partners and customers get highly irritated, so the advocate finds a new place for his offices. Okay, Bartleby, I'm going to move office in 1 week, right? And the furniture is taken out. and the only thing that remains is Bartleby. After a couple of days in the new place, the advocate got visitors. They go, "Who on earth is that guy you left in your office rooms? He was turned out of the office and now he sits on the stairs. Take him away." I'm really sorry, but he's harmless and I'm not responsible." And he even goes with the landlord and finds Bartleby and goes, "Bartleby, what are you doing here?" "Sitting on the banister." "Come, we'll find a job for you." "No." "Come at least home with me." "No." So in the end, he's taken away by the police and brought to prison, where the advocate visits him. "I know you. I want nothing to say to you." And he doesn't say anything more. "It wasn't me who brought you here." And he pays the grubman in the prison's hierarchy to feed him well, and when he comes to look for him the next time, he hasn't eaten anything, and in the prison yard, he's sitting dead on the grass. "Oh no!" Afterwards, he hears a rumor. They say he used to work for the dead letter office, and maybe that's why he got so depressed. And the narrator closes with the famous words, "Ah, Bartleby. Ah, humanity." Now, what was this all about? Don't worry too much about the question whether Bartleby suffered from a depression or was weird or whatever. The fact is, he couldn't cope with the dictatorship of capitalism that assigned him to one of the lowest ranks of its hells. So in all humility, he took what courage he had and said, "I would prefer not to." And there's something to be learned from this when alternative facts are gaining ground, when populists are on the march, when you are pressured to adapt to beliefs that are unjust and illogical. You always have a choice to say, "I would prefer not to." And this, dear congregation, was Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville. Vielen Dank.